Hey, this is the Creepo. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks.
My story called, They Think I Have Amnesia, but I Don't. My uncle and auntie think I have amnesia, but I don't. I'm just pretending. I faked having amnesia at the hospital, and the doctors bought it. And so did my uncle's family. Why I even have to fake amnesia? Well, a couple of weeks ago, my uncle's family, which consists of my uncle, his wife and son had come over to stay over at my house. It was more of a catch-up, and we did it every year. Anyhow, my uncle had become obsessed with things looking smaller when they are further away. He kept going on about it. Then, when we were out in public like in restaurants, if a person smaller than my uncle had come next to him, he would still think that they were far away because things look smaller far away. He would touch them to make sure that they weren't far away. It was real weird stuff, and something was off with my uncle. I remember when he slapped someone smaller than him in public, and my uncle then said, "He is not actually here, but far away, so how could I slap him?" And my uncle was punched in the face by the person he slapped. When we all went back to my house, my father had a word with my uncle. My uncle seemed fine for a moment, and then my uncle looked at my father, who was smaller than him. My uncle said, "You have got to be much further away from me, because things that are far away always seem smaller. So even if I had stabbed you, you are still oak because the knife wouldn't reach you, as you are far away." And my father dropped to the floor, bleeding to death. My mother screamed, and who is also smaller, and said, "You must also be far away from me, as things look smaller far away. It doesn't matter if I stab you, as you are far away from the knife ever reaching you." And my mother dropped to the ground. He then punched me and said, "The punch never really reached you because you are actually far away, because things look smaller far away." I remember waking up in hospital with a bad concussion, and the doctor had a word with me. My uncle's family were in the room, and with the doctor being small in stature, I didn't want my uncle to react the same way he did in my home. I told the doctor I don't remember anything or anyone, and I was deemed to have amnesia. My uncle then said he was my father and auntie my mother, and their son my brother. I have been pretending to have amnesia since then. My uncle still has weird bouts where he thinks things that are small are actually further away from him. I'm trying to find where they hid my parents' bodies, and I will reveal to them that I don't have. The second story called Phantom House. This happened a few weeks back, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. My buddy lives in a rural Welsh village, one with a population of what I assume to be less than 100. Houses are fairly spread out, and it's around 3 to 4 miles away from the nearest town. When I head up there to stay with him, we enjoy going on nighttime walks along the country lanes, since it's really quiet and there are barely any cars out after 10 p.m. And this particular night was no different. I feel the need to include that his house is connected to an old chapel, and he's responsible for cleaning it, looking after it. Beforehand, we had been fucking around in the chapel, throwing footballs around and having a laugh, but we thought nothing of it. And less than half an hour later, we headed out to go on a walk. It was me, my buddy Lucas, and our other friend Reese. Now, Lucas knows these roads like the back of his hand. He's lived there practically his whole life and has walked this particular route that we headed along more times than he can count. We were walking and ended up just about a mile away from the nearest village, where an old, abandoned hotel used to be. The building's been knocked down by now, but there are fences blocking where it used to be. This didn't creep us out much, but what happened next did. Lucas pointed through a thick layer of trees at what seemed to be a house with no lights on at all, and despite walking this way many times before, he had never seen the house. He insisted that the architecture was a lot different to the houses we usually saw around this area. Sort of European or Germanic, as he claimed. He wanted to get a closer look, but the house was blocked off by a construction fence, to which we thought was really weird. I shone my phone light through the fence, and we got a quick glimpse of the actual building. But then came a weird feeling of dread, and we all got this feeling at the same time. It was eerily quiet. No wind, no bugs, no nothing. Now feeling incredibly uncomfortable, we continued along the trail a little further away from the house. Nearby was a wall blocking off a field, and so we sat on the wall to kind of comprehend what had just happened. Across the field, about a mile off, maybe less, was the village's church. We had tried to laugh the situation off, covering our uncomfortable feelings with jokes, until a single church bell ring rang out from across the field. Just one. By this time, it must have been around 11 p.m., so it wouldn't have made sense for the church bell to be ringing. And even so, it only rang once, which wouldn't have made sense either. Me and Lucas agreed, and we quickly continued onto the path and through a wooded area. The walk back to Lucas' place was long and grueling, and the feeling of dread didn't help at all. We didn't speak about the experience the whole way back until we felt safe enough to. Lucas was hung up on the fact that he had never seen that house before and had never felt that uncomfortable in this particular area before, despite doing this nighttime walk countless times. So we searched around the area on a live satellite system and discovered that where the house should have been, there was nothing but a patch of dirt and some shrubbery. The whole situation seemed completely fucked to us. Everything just felt wrong. The house, the church bell, even the feeling we got whilst being in that area, the feeling of not being welcomed. Reese did a quick search online on ley lines, and if any of them cross each other in the area. Ley lines are prehistoric lines that run across the UK, and some believe them to be hotspots of paranormal activity. And much to our horror, we discovered that exactly where we were sitting on that wall, two ley lines crossed each other. To us, that explained why we must have felt uncomfortable, like we weren't welcomed. We decided to go back the next day, and in the daylight, discovered that the house was not there. The three of us were completely sure that we had seen a building, Lucas going as far as to say that he could see the architectural structure of the house. Even in the comfort of the daylight, the area just felt wrong. It sounds insane, I know, but it's been itching my brain for the past few weeks, and I needed to tell someone about it, because my family don't believe me. Lucas and Reese's families don't believe them. I'm hoping by getting this story out there, that someone might have an explanation as of why the house was there, and then suddenly wasn't. An explanation as of why we felt so scared and dreading what would happen if we stayed in that area. I can't help but think it had something to do with us fucking around in the chapel. Maybe I sound completely insane, but this whole situation doesn't sit right with me. Please, if you can, provide an explanation, because it's driving me crazy.